The Neighbor by Jarod Roselló. It was last Wednesday when I found the hole in the backyard. I thought something must have done this during the night. I was certain it hadn't been there the day before. I mentioned the hole to the neighbor, but he seemed disinterested or distracted, as though he had better things to worry about than a hole in my backyard. I asked if I might borrow his shovel to fill the hole. He hesitated, then agreed, and handed it to me over the fence. I think this was when he walked back into his home. I didn't see him, but I heard the swishing of the sliding glass door, and then a silence I associate with absence. But this is the story of the hole, not the neighbor. The hole was perfectly round. At first I believed something had fallen from the sky, or had been shooting through space, and hit here with such velocity it dug itself straight into the ground, compacting the dirt beneath it. And because the grass around the hole appeared to be burned, it must have been moving with great speed, something small that fell from a tremendous height. But it didn't matter what caused it, only that it was here, and that I needed to do something about it. So I used the neighbor's shovel to fill the hole with loose soil and rocks from around the fence that separated our properties. After an hour, and once I'd depleted my own soil and rocks and loose plant matter, I carefully scooped some from the neighbor's yard, just underneath the fence, but it still wasn't enough to completely fill the hole. While contemplating what to do next, a gust of wind brushed against my leg. Startled, I shifted my body, and the shovel lifted from my hand, falling into the hole. I scrambled to retrieve it, but I was not quick enough. I sat down beside the hole and tried to think of a new plan. The shovel was lost. The neighbor would be angry. I could think of nothing else to do. Just before the sun set, I went to the neighbor's house to tell him about the fate of his shovel. But before I could knock on his door, I heard the sound of a person crying, a deep, low sobbing. I placed my hand on the hot wood of the neighbor's door and waited. There are times when it is appropriate to interrupt someone while they are crying, and though I did not know the reason the neighbor was crying, the manner, duration, and intensity allowed me to deduce that this was not a crying that came from the momentary pain of injury. It was not a sadness associated with a heartbreaking commercial or the penultimate scene of a family drama. Instead, it was the kind of crying that comes only with a deep, enduring sadness, the kind that courses its way through one's entire body, tingling the fingertips, warming the face, and twisting the stomach. This, I believed, was the kind of grief that rerouted entire lives, altered trajectories of one's existence, or else this was the kind of sadness that made it impossible to continue on, the pain that renders a life unlivable. At a lull, I knocked on the door and waited. The trees above my head rustled in the gentle wind. Somewhere a cat hissed. A siren dissolved with distance. I tapped my foot on the ground, then knocked again. The door opened and my neighbor appeared, eyes bloodshot, face red, fists clenched. For a few seconds, we stared at one another. And then I said, "Something's happened to your shovel." And he said, "I know." And like that, the hole was never filled.